Most traders think losing comes from weak strategies. Wrong. The real reason is mindset. Mark Douglas discovered 15 rules that flip your psychology, so you can trade with unstoppable confidence, unshakable discipline, and true consistency. The truth is, the markets themselves are neutral. They don't care who you are, how much you've studied, or what tools you use. The markets simply exist, moving up and down according to supply and demand, driven by millions of decisions. The real challenge isn't in reading the market, it's in handling yourself. And this is why most traders fail. They step into the market carrying fear, greed, impatience, and the desperate need to be right. Those emotions don't just cloud judgment, they sabotage decision-making. Mark Douglas spent his career showing traders that success doesn't come from secret indicators or complicated systems. It comes from reshaping how you think, how you respond, and how you manage uncertainty. The first truth Douglas drilled into traders is that anything can happen. It sounds simple, but it's the foundation of consistent success. Every trade is unique. Even if the pattern looks exactly like one you've seen before, the outcome is never guaranteed. You could have 10 trades in a row that look identical, and some will win, others will lose. The reason is that no two moments in the market are ever the same. The participants, the emotions, the orders flowing in, everything changes. If you try to hold on to the illusion of certainty, you set yourself up for frustration. But if you accept that every trade carries risk and uncertainty, you free yourself from the need to be right. That shift alone can transform your trading. Imagine the relief of entering a trade without demanding it to be a winner. Imagine the calm of knowing that losses don't mean failure. They just mean probabilities played out. When you internalize this, fear starts to fade. You stop hesitating. You stop second-guessing. You begin to trust your process. Mark Douglas compared trading to rolling a weighted dice. If you have an edge, say, the dice lands on your side 60% of the time, you don't know the result of any single roll. You could lose 3 times in a row. But over the long run, if you keep rolling, the edge always plays out. Trading works the same way. Your job is not to predict each individual outcome, but to play your edge with discipline over and over. And this is where most traders sabotage themselves. They cut winners too early because they fear the market will take profits back. They let losers run because they can't accept being wrong. They over-leverage because greed whispers that this one is the big one. In every case, the problem isn't the market, it's psychology. The market is a mirror. It reflects back your beliefs, your patience, and your weaknesses. Step into it with clarity and discipline, and you'll eventually succeed. Step in with fear and ego, and it will expose every flaw. Douglas taught that one of the biggest traps is random reinforcement. A bad trade, a reckless trade, can still win by chance. And when that happens, your brain says, see, breaking the rules works. You feel rewarded for doing the wrong thing. But sooner or later, that habit destroys you. Likewise, a perfect trade executed with discipline can still lose. If you let that discourage you, you'll stop following your plan. Winners understand this. They know one trade means nothing. They know the outcome of a single position doesn't matter. What matters is the next 100 trades, the next 1,000, executed with precision. That's how probabilities unfold. That's how consistency is built. And consistency is the word Douglas repeated over and over. Consistency doesn't mean never losing. It means creating stability in your behavior. It means doing the same thing the right way, every single time, regardless of what the market does. The irony is that most traders want consistent results without consistent actions. They jump strategies. They tweak their systems after every loss. They let emotions dictate decisions. Then they wonder why their results swing wildly. If you want consistent results, you must first become consistent yourself. And that requires discipline. Discipline to follow your plan, discipline to manage risk, discipline to accept losses without emotional attachment. Douglas hammered home that risk management is the seatbelt of trading. Anything can happen. That means you never know when a freak event or sudden move can wipe you out. The only protection is controlling how much you risk on every trade. Professionals don't think in terms of one position making them rich. They think in terms of survival, knowing that as long as they preserve capital, they can stay in the game and let probabilities play out. Amateurs dream of the home run. Professionals dream of steady compounding. Another crucial teaching is detachment. Most traders tie their self-worth to outcomes. When they win, they feel smart. When they lose, they feel worthless. But the market is not judging you. It doesn't care who you are. A loss doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means your edge didn't work this time. Detach your identity from outcomes, and you'll trade with freedom. Winners know that being wrong on a trade doesn't mean they're bad traders. It simply means they're playing the game correctly, executing setups, taking losses, moving forward. Losses are the cost of doing business, no different than expenses in any company. And this leads to one of Douglas's most powerful truths: you don't need to be right, you need to make money. Most traders are obsessed with being right. They want to call tops and bottoms, they want to boast about perfect entries. But this obsession destroys them because they refuse to cut losses. They hold on to losing trades, hoping the market will turn, just so they can say they were right. Consistent winners don't care about being right. They care about following their plan and protecting their edge. If that means taking 5 small losses in a row, so be it. If the 6th trade follows the same plan and wins big, the process works. Ego has no place in trading. Think of a casino again. The casino doesn't celebrate being right or wrong on a single spin of the roulette wheel. It doesn't panic when someone wins big. Why? Because it knows the probabilities. It knows that over thousands of plays, the house always wins. Casinos aren't emotional. They don't need to be right on every spin. They simply apply their edge over and over. That's how traders must think. Your trading account is your casino. Each trade is a spin. Over time, your edge will play out if, and only if, you stick to the rules. Discipline is the glue that makes all of this work. Without discipline, your edge means nothing. You can have the best system in the world, but if you lack the discipline to execute it consistently, you'll fail. Discipline is what allows you to pull the trigger when fear tries to freeze you. Discipline is what forces you to cut a loser when ego says, just hold a little longer. Discipline is what keeps you from over-leveraging when greed whispers, double down. This one is guaranteed. The market punishes impulses, it rewards discipline. That's why so few succeed. They want freedom without discipline, success without sacrifice. But in trading, discipline is freedom. Confidence, too, is misunderstood. Most traders think confidence comes from predicting the market correctly, but that's fragile. The moment you're wrong, and you crumble. Real confidence comes from trusting yourself, not the market. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you'll follow your plan. It comes from executing with consistency, day after day. This kind of confidence is unshakable, because it's not tied to outcomes, it's tied to process. And when you build confidence in your process, you stop fearing losses, you stop chasing wins, and you start trading with calm clarity. All of these principles flow into what Douglas called the consistency mindset. This is the holy grail of trading. It's not about making millions overnight. It's about showing up every day, executing your plan, managing risk, accepting uncertainty, and repeating it endlessly. When you do that, consistency in results emerges naturally. You stop swinging between euphoria and despair. You stop sabotaging yourself. You trade like a professional, detached from outcomes, focused only on execution. That's when trading becomes not just profitable, but peaceful. Mark Douglas left behind more than just rules. He left behind a framework for thinking. He taught that trading is not a technical game, it's a mental one. Charts, strategies, and indicators matter, but they're only 20% of the equation. The other 80% is mindset. Without the right mindset, even the best system will fail. With the right mindset, even a simple system can generate wealth. That's why his teachings resonate decades later, across markets, across generations. He wasn't giving traders new ways to look at charts. He was giving them new ways to look at themselves. Most traders enter the market thinking they're ready, armed with charts, indicators, and a system they believe will deliver riches. But very few pause to ask themselves, am I mentally prepared to handle the reality of trading? This is where Mark Douglas made his most important contribution. He revealed that trading is not a test of intelligence, nor a competition of who has the best strategy. It's a test of who can control themselves. If you can master your own psychology, then the market stops being a chaotic storm and becomes an environment of opportunity. If you fail to master yourself, every chart, every trade, and every position becomes a battlefield where you end up your own worst enemy. One of the hardest lessons Douglas emphasized is detaching from money. Most traders are obsessed with the dollar signs flashing on their screen. They watch every tick, every fluctuation in profit and loss, and their emotions rise and fall with the numbers. When they see green, they feel good. When they see red, they panic. But trading this way is emotional suicide. It locks you into short-term thinking and blinds you to the bigger picture. Douglas argued that you must detach from the money and focus on the process. The irony is that when you stop obsessing over money and instead execute flawlessly, the money naturally follows. Professionals don't trade for the rush of winning, they trade for consistency. Losses are inevitable, but amateurs treat them like disasters. They think one loss means something is broken. They think a losing streak means their system doesn't work. This panic leads them to constantly change strategies, constantly tweak rules, constantly chase the next magic indicator. Douglas called this self-destructive behavior. Winners don't panic when they lose. They accept it. They know that a loss is just part of the game, like paying rent for the opportunity to play. If you run a business, you have expenses. In trading, losses are expenses. They're not personal, they're not punishment. They're just the cost of doing business. Once you accept this truth, losses stop hurting. They become just another part of the process. The real danger is when you let losses control your emotions. Fear of losing makes you hesitate to enter trades. It makes you exit too soon. It paralyzes you. And when fear takes control, you stop following your plan. On the other side is greed. Greed makes you risk too much, hold trades too long, and believe the market owes you more than it's giving. Fear and greed are two sides of the same coin. Both are killers of consistency. Douglas's teachings are clear. The consistent trader neutralizes both. They don't get euphoric on a win or crushed by a loss. They stay calm, centered, and detached, knowing that neither outcome defines them. This ability to stay detached comes from seeing trading as a probability game. Think of a professional poker player. They don't expect to win every hand. They know that even with pocket aces, they can still lose. But they also know that over hundreds of hands, their edge will show. So they play the long game. They don't panic when they lose one pot. They don't chase revenge when someone bluffs them out. They keep playing their edge. Douglas taught traders to think exactly this way. If you have an edge and you apply it consistently, you don't need to care about the next trade. You care about the next 100 trades. That perspective kills fear, silences greed, and creates confidence. But here's where most traders fail. They can't separate individual outcomes from the bigger picture. They believe each trade has to be a winner. When it isn't, they spiral into doubt and frustration. Douglas urged traders to embrace randomness. Yes, randomness. Because in any single trade, anything can happen. Once you accept that, you stop demanding certainty. And when you stop demanding certainty, you finally find peace. Imagine the shift in your trading life when you no longer need to be right, when you no longer feel crushed by a single loss. That freedom is what Douglas called the true consistency mindset. He also emphasized humility. The market doesn't care about you. It doesn't reward you for working hard, for studying late, or for believing you deserve a win. It operates on probabilities, not fairness. When traders carry ego into the market, thinking they're smarter, thinking they can control outcomes, the market humbles them. The ego wants to be right. The professional wants to make money. This distinction is crucial. If you cling to ego, you'll hold on to losing trades just to avoid admitting you were wrong. You'll risk too much just to prove yourself. You'll ignore your plan because you believe your gut is smarter. And eventually, ego will drain your account. The winners leave ego at the door. They don't care about being right. They care about executing their edge and walking away with profits, even if it means being wrong, more often than not. Douglas pointed out that successful traders often win with shockingly simple strategies. The difference is not the complexity of their system, but the mastery of their mind. They can sit through boredom, wait for their setups, and take them without hesitation. They can endure losing streaks without changing their approach. They can resist the urge to overtrade just to feel busy. In other words, they can stay disciplined while the majority cannot. That's why discipline is more valuable than indicators, and psychology is more powerful than analysis. The shift Douglas demanded is a deep one. It's not just about knowing these truths, it's about internalizing them. You must actually believe that anything can happen. You must actually believe that losses are normal. You must actually believe that your job is not to predict but to execute. Without this internal shift, you'll always slip back into fear and impulse. This is why so many traders nod their heads when reading Douglas's work but still fail in practice. They know the words but don't live them. True change happens when these rules become your second nature, when you don't just understand them but embody them in every trade. Think about what it would mean for you personally. Imagine sitting at your desk, looking at a setup, and pulling the trigger without hesitation, without fear. Imagine taking a loss and not flinching, not doubting, simply logging it and moving on. Imagine having a string of wins and not getting cocky, not increasing risk recklessly, but staying steady and disciplined. That is what Douglas's 15 rules train you to do. They rewire your psychology so you can operate like a professional, immune to the emotional storms that sink most traders. When you look at consistent traders, you'll notice something: they're boring. They don't chase excitement. They don't get high from wins or crushed by losses. They treat trading like a business, methodical and calm. This lack of drama is exactly why they succeed. Most retail traders want excitement. They want adrenaline. But that desire is the very thing that destroys them. Trading is not meant to thrill you. It's meant to build wealth slowly and consistently. Douglas's rules take you from emotional thrill seeker to disciplined executor. There's also the concept of trust. You must learn to trust yourself. Trust that you will follow your plan. Trust that you will manage risk. Trust that you don't need to know the outcome in advance. This kind of trust doesn't come overnight. It comes from repetition, from journaling your trades, from reviewing your behavior, from catching yourself when emotions try to take over. Every small act of discipline builds that trust until one day you no longer need to fight yourself. You simply act in alignment with your rules effortlessly. That is when you reach the level of unconscious competence. Douglas often said that trading is a paradox. The harder you try to control the market, the less control you have. The more you demand certainty, the more chaos you experience. But when you surrender to uncertainty, when you accept that you cannot control outcomes, suddenly you feel more in control of yourself. This paradox frustrates beginners but liberates professionals. The market cannot be controlled, but your actions can. And when you focus only on what you can control, your risk, your discipline, your process, you find the consistency everyone else is chasing. So the essence of Douglas's message is this: you must transform your relationship with the market. Stop treating it like an enemy to conquer. Stop treating it like a puzzle to solve. Stop treating it like a lottery machine. Instead, see it as an environment of probabilities. See it as a mirror reflecting your mindset. Approach it with humility, discipline, and acceptance, and it will reward you. Approach it with fear, ego, and desperation, and it will punish you. At the heart of his rules is freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from greed. Freedom from the roller coaster of emotions that most traders ride every day. Imagine trading with that freedom. Imagine sitting down at your computer not stressed, not desperate, but calm, focused, and ready. That's what these rules give you. The ability to trade with peace of mind, knowing that success isn't about guessing right, it's about executing consistently. And once you achieve that mindset, trading becomes not just profitable, but sustainable. Most traders fail not because they lack knowledge, not because they don't know technical analysis, not because they can't read charts, but because they cannot handle uncertainty. Deep down, every human being craves certainty. We are wired for it. Our brains evolved to protect us, to anticipate danger, to avoid risk. For thousands of years, survival depended on knowing what would happen next. Will there be food tomorrow? Will there be a predator hiding in the bushes? Will the weather allow us to hunt? Certainty was safety. Uncertainty meant danger. And even today, in the world of financial markets, that old wiring still controls us. Traders step into the market craving guarantees. They want to know, will this trade win? Will this strategy always work? Will this setup deliver the result I want? But here's the harsh truth. The market never gives guarantees. Every trade, no matter how perfect it looks, carries uncertainty. And until you accept that truth, until you embrace uncertainty, you will remain trapped in cycles of fear, hesitation, second-guessing, and self-sabotage. Mark Douglas, the legendary trading psychologist and author of Trading in the Zone, said it best: trading is not about certainty. It is about probabilities. The market is a probability game. And the moment you try to treat it as something else, you destroy yourself. Let's break this down, because at the core of your trading struggles lies this one concept: uncertainty. Think about it like this: if I flip a coin, do you know whether it will land on heads or tails? No. But you know the probability, 50-day 50. If I flip that coin 100 times, you don't know which flips will be heads and which will be tails, but you know that roughly half will land on each side. That is how trading works. Each trade is like a coin flip. You don't know the outcome of the next trade. But across many trades, if you have an edge, probabilities will play out. Casinos understand this better than anyone. A casino does not care if the next roulette spin lands on red or black. It doesn't panic, it doesn't hesitate, it doesn't pray. It knows that over thousands of spins, the small mathematical edge built into the game ensures that the house always wins. This is why casinos are billion-dollar businesses and gamblers go broke. Gamblers chase certainty on a single spin. Casinos embrace uncertainty across thousands of spins. Now let's compare this mindset to a trader's. The average trader wants certainty. They see a breakout setup and their brain whispers, "This is the one. This is the trade that will win big." They convince themselves it's guaranteed. They enter with oversized risk, their heart pounding, because they believe certainty exists. Then the trade fails. Instead of taking it as a normal outcome of probabilities, they feel crushed, betrayed, angry. They say things like, "This should have worked. The market tricked me. The setup was perfect." What they don't realize is this: no setup, no signal, no strategy is ever certain. Each trade is unique. Each outcome is independent. The market owes you nothing. And this is where fear comes in. Fear is born out of uncertainty. You hesitate to pull the trigger because you don't know what will happen. You second guess yourself because you crave confirmation. You avoid trades or you chase trades because deep down you are terrified of being wrong. But here's the paradox: you cannot remove uncertainty from trading. It will always be there. What you can remove is the illusion of certainty. The illusion that you can predict the future, the illusion that you can know for sure. Once you accept this, once you embrace the randomness of each individual trade, fear begins to lose its power. Think about how hesitation destroys traders. You see a setup forming. It looks good, but you hesitate. You want one more candle, one more confirmation, one more signal. You delay. The move takes off without you. Now you feel regret, so you chase. You enter late. The market reverses. Now you feel pain. You exit. Then the market moves in the original direction again. You feel frustration. And the cycle repeats endlessly. All because you were trying to remove uncertainty by waiting for more confirmation. But no amount of confirmation ever removes uncertainty. The market can and will do anything at any time. Once you understand this, hesitation disappears. Let me tell you a story about two traders, Alex and Maya. Alex was obsessed with finding the perfect setup. He believed if he studied enough indicators, enough patterns, enough strategies, he would finally discover the holy grail, the setup that never loses. One day Alex saw what he thought was that perfect trade. He bet big, risking half his account. He was sure it would work. The trade failed. In one moment half of his account vanished. Alex was broken, angry, confused. He quit for weeks, blaming the market. What Alex didn't understand was simple. He was chasing certainty in a game that only offers probabilities. Now let's look at Maya. Maya understood Mark Douglas's teaching. She knew every trade was uncertain. She never expected to know the outcome in advance. Instead, she focused on her edge, her risk management, and her execution. Each trade for her was just a number in a long series. Some won, some lost, but over 50 or 100 trades her probabilities played out. She never risked more than she was comfortable losing. She accepted small losses with calm detachment. And slowly but surely, her account grew. Maya didn't care about being right on any single trade. She cared about being consistent across many. Guess who became profitable? Not Alex, the certainty chaser. Maya, the uncertainty embracer. So the question is, how do you become like Maya? How do you actually embrace uncertainty, instead of just intellectually understanding it? Because knowing the concept isn't enough. You must rewire your psychology. Step 1: reframe losses. Stop seeing a loss as failure. A loss is simply one outcome in the probability distribution. If your strategy has a 55% win rate, then 45% of your trades will lose by design. Expecting every trade to win is like expecting every coin flip to land heads. It's delusion. Instead, embrace losses as part of the game. Step 2: think in series, not singles. Your success is measured not by one trade, but by a series of trades. Focus on the next 20 trades, the next 50 trades, not the one in front of you. When you shift your perspective to series outcomes, you detach from the emotional roller coaster of single outcomes. Step 3: risk small. The reason most traders can't accept uncertainty is because they risk too much. If losing one trade threatens your survival, of course you will crave certainty. Of course you will panic. Risk small enough that each trade is emotionally irrelevant. If losing doesn't hurt, you can finally act without fear. Step 4: detach from outcome. Your job as a trader is not to predict the future. Your job is to execute your edge faithfully. The outcome is none of your business. The market decides the outcome. You decide whether you followed your plan. That's it. Step 5: build unshakable belief. Write this down: anything can happen in the market. Repeat it daily until it becomes your truth. When you internalize this, hesitation disappears. Because if anything can happen, then nothing surprises you. You are always ready. Now imagine trading with this mindset. No more fear. No more second guessing. No more paralysis. You see a setup, you know it has an edge. You take it without hesitation. It wins. Great. It loses. Fine. You move on. You don't measure yourself by the result of one trade, but by the discipline of executing across many. That is true trading freedom. Mark Douglas explained that the traders who win consistently are not the ones who predict best. They are the ones who think in probabilities. They understand that uncertainty is built into the game, and they accept it fully. This acceptance allows them to stay calm, detached, and confident even when outcomes are unfavorable. They don't crumble after a loss, and they don't get overconfident after a win. They remain balanced, steady, and focused on the long run. Think about your own trading right now. How much time do you spend trying to eliminate uncertainty? How much time do you waste searching for the perfect indicator, the perfect confirmation, the perfect strategy that will make you feel safe? All that energy is wasted because the certainty you're chasing does not exist. The sooner you stop searching for it, the sooner you start winning. Trading mastery begins when you stop demanding certainty. The market owes you nothing, not a win, not a prediction, not safety. But it does offer something better. It offers probabilities. It offers opportunity. And if you respect those probabilities, if you manage risk, if you embrace uncertainty, you can finally step into the zone where trading becomes effortless. Imagine waking up tomorrow, opening your charts and feeling no fear. Imagine seeing a setup, executing calmly, and moving on regardless of the outcome. Imagine trading with clarity, with freedom, with discipline. This is possible, but only if you accept this truth. Uncertainty is the rule of the market, not the exception. The traders who resist uncertainty, who demand guarantees, who seek comfort, they remain stuck in cycles of fear, regret, and inconsistency. The traders who embrace uncertainty, who see each trade as just one in a series, who detach from outcomes, they are the ones who win consistently. Which trader will you be? Remember this: you do not need certainty to succeed. You only need probability, discipline, and acceptance. You only need to execute your edge without fear. The rest will take care of itself. So let me leave you with this. Write it down. Put it where you can see it every day. Anything can happen. I don't need certainty. I only need probability. Repeat it until it becomes who you are. When you believe this deeply, hesitation disappears, fear dissolves, and confidence rises. Not because you know what will happen, but because you know you can handle whatever happens. That is the first rule of Mark Douglas. That is the foundation of consistent trading success. Embrace uncertainty. It's not just a rule. It's the mindset that separates losing traders from consistent winners. Most traders make a critical mistake. They assume that because two setups look the same, the outcome will also be the same. They see a pattern form on their chart and immediately recall the last time they saw it. Maybe the last time it produced a huge winner, so they expect the same result again. Or maybe it failed badly, so they hesitate, paralyzed by fear of a repeat. This thinking is what traps traders in inconsistency. The truth, as Mark Douglas taught, is simple but powerful. Every trade is unique. No two trades are ever the same, even if the chart pattern looks identical. The market is made up of millions of participants, banks, funds, institutions, and retail traders, all making decisions at different times for different reasons. The specific combination of orders, emotions, and decisions that created one outcome in the past will never exist again in the future. You might see the same breakout pattern, but the people trading it today are not the same people who traded it yesterday. The conditions are different, the volume is different, the broader market context is different. That's why every trade is unique. This concept changes everything, because it frees you from the dangerous habit of expecting the market to repeat itself. Many traders think, last time this pattern gave me a win, so this time it must work again. They load up their position with confidence. When it fails, they feel betrayed. Or they think, last time this setup lost, I better avoid it. They skip the trade, and this time it works perfectly, leaving them frustrated. Both reactions are based on the false belief that the past guarantees the future. But in trading, past outcomes never guarantee future ones. Let me give you an example. Imagine two identical head and shoulders patterns forming on your chart. The first time the pattern breaks down, price collapses, and you make a solid profit. The second time, the pattern looks exactly the same, but instead of collapsing, the market fakes out and rallies upward, stopping you out. What's the difference? Nothing in appearance, everything in reality. The market context has shifted. Maybe institutions were buying into the move this time. Maybe news just came out. Maybe volume was thin. You don't know, and you can't know. The only certainty is that no two trades are ever truly the same. The traders who succeed accept this truth. They don't attach emotional weight to patterns. They don't think, this setup owes me the same result. They treat each trade as a unique event, governed by probabilities, not by memory. They know that their edge plays out over many trades, not because the same trade repeats, but because probabilities unfold across different, unique situations. Think of it like flipping a coin again. Every flip is unique. The coin doesn't remember the last flip. Just because you got heads 3 times in a row doesn't mean the next flip is more likely to be tails. Each flip is independent. Trading is the same. Each trade is an independent event, unaffected by the last one. So how do you apply this rule in your own trading? First, stop comparing your current trade to your past ones. Past results are irrelevant to this moment. Second, detach your expectations. Just because a trade looks good doesn't mean it will work. It only means it has a probability. Third, focus on execution, not outcome. Your job is not to guess whether this trade will repeat the past. Your job is to execute your plan, manage risk, and let probabilities play out over time. Here's the key mindset shift when you see a familiar pattern. Remind yourself that it only looks familiar. It is still unique. The players are different, the conditions are different, and the outcome is unknown. This frees you from bias. It keeps you humble. It keeps you disciplined. And most importantly, it keeps you from overloading your trades with unrealistic expectations. Every trade is a fresh roll of the dice. Every trade is its own independent event. And once you embrace this, you stop clinging to the past and start living in the present. That's when trading becomes calm, focused, and consistent. That is the second rule of Mark Douglas: every trade is unique. Never expect the past to repeat itself. Respect each trade as independent, treat it as part of a probability series, and your consistency will grow. Winners know this truth. Do you? Most traders approach the market with the wrong mindset. They believe their job is to predict. They think if they can just analyze the chart perfectly, read the news correctly, or interpret indicators flawlessly, they will know exactly what happens next. But this is a trap. The market is not about prediction. It is about probabilities. Consistency comes from thinking in probabilities, not from trying to predict the future. Mark Douglas compared trading to rolling weighted dice. Imagine you have a pair of dice slightly weighted so that the number 7 appears 60% of the time. You can't know what the next single roll will be. It could be 2, it could be 12, it could be 7. But you do know this: if you roll those dice enough times, the odds will play out. 7 will appear more often than the other numbers. That's how probabilities work. And trading works exactly the same way. If your trading system has an edge, a statistical advantage, it means that across a large number of trades, you will win more than you lose, or that your winners will be bigger than your losers. But here's the catch: you don't know which specific trades will be winners and which will be losers. You only know that over time, the probabilities tilt in your favor. This is why probability thinking is so powerful. It frees you from the emotional chaos of trying to predict every trade. When you think in probabilities, you don't care about being right on this one setup. You don't need to be. What matters is being disciplined enough to take every valid setup, knowing that across the next 20, 50, or 100 trades, your edge will show up. The problem is most traders don't think this way. They put all their emotional energy into the next trade. They want it to be the winner. They fear it might be the loser. They overanalyze, hesitate, or skip trades entirely because they're trying to predict. And when you trade this way, your edge never has a chance to play out. You end up cherry-picking, second-guessing, and sabotaging yourself. Think of the casino again. A casino doesn't know if the next roulette spin will be red or black. But it does know that over thousands of spins, the house edge guarantees profit. Do you think the casino panics when someone wins big on one spin? Not at all. They don't even flinch. Because they're not thinking about a single spin. They're thinking in probabilities. That is exactly how you must think as a trader. Here's how to put this into practice. First, accept that you don't know what the next trade will do. Stop pretending you can predict it. Second, commit to taking every valid trade your system gives you. Don't pick and choose based on your emotions. Third, measure your results in series, not singles. Track 20 or 50 trades as a group. This is how you'll see whether your edge is real. When you start thinking this way, trading becomes less emotional. A losing trade doesn't crush you because you know it's just one event in a long series. A winning trade doesn't make you overconfident because you know it doesn't guarantee the next one. You remain balanced, steady, and focused on the long run. Consistency is not about prediction. It is about probability thinking. The traders who succeed are not the ones who guess best. They are the ones who execute faithfully, trade after trade, allowing probabilities to unfold. That is how discipline becomes profitable. So remember this: every trade is uncertain, but across many trades, your edge reveals itself. Stop predicting. Start thinking in probabilities. That is the third rule of Mark Douglas, and it is one of the most important mind shifts you will ever make as a trader. One of the most damaging habits in trading is attaching your self-worth to the outcome of a trade. Many traders measure their value as people by whether their last position was a win or a loss. If they win, they feel smart, powerful, and capable. If they lose, they feel stupid, weak, or even like failures. This emotional roller coaster is exhausting, and worse, it sabotages consistent performance. Mark Douglas taught a crucial truth: a losing trade doesn't mean you are a loser. It simply means probabilities played out. To achieve freedom and consistency, you must detach your identity from the outcome of individual trades. Let's go back to the casino example. When someone wins big at the blackjack table, do the casino owners feel like failures? Do they beat themselves up and question their worth as professionals? Of course not. Why? Because they understand probabilities. They know that across thousands of hands, the house edge guarantees profit. They don't tie their identity to a single outcome. The same must be true for you as a trader. But here's the problem. Most traders enter the market carrying heavy emotional baggage. They want every trade to prove something about them. A winning trade makes them feel validated. A losing trade feels like a personal attack. This mindset makes it impossible to trade with clarity. Instead of calmly executing their edge, they trade to protect their ego. They avoid losses at all costs. They move stop losses. They hold on to losers far too long, all because they fear what a loss says about them. The truth is simple. Every trade is just one event in a long series. It doesn't define you. It doesn't say anything about your intelligence, your discipline, or your potential. It is simply one instance of probabilities unfolding. Some will win, some will lose. That's the game. When you truly accept this, you gain freedom. You no longer panic when you take a loss. You don't get overconfident when you catch a big win. You stay balanced, steady, and focused. Detaching from outcomes doesn't mean you stop caring about results. It means you stop personalizing them. You still track your performance, review your trades, and learn from mistakes, but you no longer attach your identity to the outcome of a single position. This shift creates emotional resilience. You stop fearing losses because you understand they are part of the process. You stop needing every trade to work out, which allows you to take setups with confidence and consistency. Think of a professional athlete. A basketball player doesn't expect to hit every shot. Even the greatest miss often. But they don't see a missed shot as proof they are failures. They know it's part of the game. The same is true in trading. The best traders miss trades, take losses, and experience setbacks. What separates them from losing traders is they don't tie their self-worth to those outcomes. Here's how to build this mindset. First, remind yourself daily that every trade is independent. A loss doesn't predict the next one, just as a win doesn't guarantee the next. Second, use small position sizes until you are emotionally detached. If a trade makes you anxious or euphoric, your risk is too big. Third, adopt the language of probabilities. Instead of saying, "I was wrong," say, "That was a losing outcome." This small shift rewires your brain to see trades as neutral events, not reflections of your identity. When you master this, trading becomes much lighter. You stop battling yourself and start working with the market. You no longer see a loss as failure. You see it as feedback. You no longer chase wins. You let probabilities unfold. The freedom you gain from detaching from outcomes is not only psychological, it's practical. It gives you the emotional stability to stick to your edge, to cut losses without hesitation, and to ride winners without fear. Remember, trading is a probability game, not a test of your worth. A losing trade doesn't mean you're a loser, and a winning trade doesn't mean you're a genius. It just means probabilities played out. When you detach your identity from outcomes, you unlock emotional freedom, and in that freedom lies the consistency every trader is chasing. Trading strategies are everywhere. You can find thousands of books, courses, and indicators promising to reveal the perfect setup. But here's the reality: even the best strategy in the world is useless without discipline. Mark Douglas made this clear. Discipline is the foundation of consistent success. Winners don't trade based on their moods, impulses, or gut feelings. They trade their plan. They know the market punishes impulsive decisions and rewards disciplined execution. Think about it. How many times have you planned a trade carefully, only to abandon the plan the moment emotions kicked in? Maybe you saw the price spike and jumped in too early. Maybe you feared missing out and chased a move that was already gone. Or maybe you ignored your stop loss, hoping the market would turn back in your favor. In each of those moments, discipline collapsed and impulse took over. And almost always, the result was painful. Discipline is not about predicting the market perfectly. It's about controlling yourself when the market tempts you to abandon your rules. The market is designed to trigger your impulses. Every flashing price, every sudden move, every news headline, all of it is noise that stirs up fear and greed. Without discipline, you become a puppet to those emotions. With discipline, you rise above them and execute with clarity. Consider professional athletes again. A boxer doesn't throw wild punches because he feels like it. A golfer doesn't change their swing on a whim because of nerves. They rely on training and discipline, even under pressure. Trading is no different. Your edge only works if you apply it consistently. One lapse in discipline can erase weeks of progress. Here's the truth: impulse trading is seductive. It feels exciting. It gives you a rush. But that rush is costly. It leads to random results, inconsistency, and chaos. Discipline, on the other hand, feels boring. It means taking the same setups again and again. It means following rules when your emotions scream at you to break them. It means accepting that not every day will be thrilling. But boring discipline is what compounds into consistent profit. So how do you strengthen discipline? First, build a written trading plan. If it's not written, it's not real. Write down your entry criteria, exit rules, risk limits, and maximum daily loss. Second, commit to following that plan no matter how you feel in the moment. Even if you feel certain the market will reverse, follow the plan. Third, use accountability. Track every trade in a journal. After each session, review, did I follow the plan? If not, why? Over time, this builds awareness and self-control. Another key is position sizing. If you risk too much, discipline is nearly impossible. Your emotions will overwhelm you. Keep your risk small enough that you can follow your rules without fear or desperation. Remember, trading is not about hitting home runs, it's about executing consistently over time. Mark Douglas often reminded traders that discipline is freedom. At first, rules feel restrictive, but in reality, rules liberate you. They free you from emotional chaos. They give you structure in an unpredictable environment. They allow you to act with clarity when everyone else is panicking. That's why winners love discipline. It's their anchor in the storm of the market. At the end of the day, you have a choice: a trade with discipline or trade with impulse. One leads to chaos, stress, and financial pain. The other leads to calm execution and consistent results. Your strategy means nothing if you don't have the discipline to apply it. But if you commit to discipline, truly commit, you step into the mindset of a professional. And that's when the market starts rewarding you. Remember this: the market doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care about your excitement, your fear, or your impatience. It only responds to actions. And those actions, disciplined or impulsive, will determine your fate as a trader. One of the hardest lessons traders must learn is this: the market owes you nothing. It doesn't care if you've suffered 3 losses in a row. It doesn't care if you've had a tough week, or if you desperately need a win to feel better. The market has no memory, no emotion, no sense of fairness. Each trade is completely independent. Believing, "I'm due for a win," is one of the most dangerous traps a trader can fall into. This mindset, thinking the market somehow owes you after a string of losses, is what gamblers call the gambler's fallacy. Imagine someone at a roulette table watching the wheel land on red 5 times in a row. They think black must be next, it's overdue. But the reality is, every spin is independent. The odds haven't changed. That same mistake happens in trading all the time. After 3 or 4 losing trades, traders convince themselves the next one has to work. They double their position, take a setup they normally wouldn't, or force a trade out of frustration. More often than not, this emotional decision leads to even deeper losses. Mark Douglas warned traders about this trap because it destroys discipline. The moment you think the market owes you something, you've given away your control. You've stopped respecting probabilities. You're no longer trading your edge, you're trading your emotions, and the market punishes that mindset every single time. Think of it this way: if you flip a fair coin 10 times and it lands on heads 7 times, does that mean tails is guaranteed next? Of course not. Each flip is independent. The probabilities stay the same. Trading works the same way. You can have a winning edge, but that edge plays out only over a large number of trades. Individual outcomes are random. Clusters of wins and losses are part of the game. Nothing is ever owed to you. This truth is liberating once you accept it. Instead of obsessing over fairness or expecting the market to make it up to you, you focus on execution. You stop forcing trades because you no longer believe you're due. You stop doubling down in frustration because you know probabilities don't bend to your emotions. You trade with calm detachment, knowing each trade is just one event in a long series. But detaching from the idea of fairness requires a mindset shift. First, remind yourself daily the market is neutral. It's not your enemy. It's not your friend. It's not punishing you or rewarding you. It simply is. Second, track your results over a large sample size, say 50 or 100 trades. This will remind you that your edge plays out over time, not in the next trade. Third, beware of revenge trading. If you catch yourself thinking, "I need to win back what I lost," stop immediately. That thought is a clear sign you've fallen into the fairness trap. Professional traders know this deeply. They don't sit there sulking after a losing streak. They don't believe the market will suddenly reward them. They know the only thing they control is themselves, their discipline, their risk management, and their ability to keep showing up for the next opportunity. They focus on process, not payback. The market is ruthless to those who demand fairness, but it generously rewards those who respect probabilities and stay disciplined. When you stop expecting the market to give you something, you gain true freedom. You're no longer emotionally tied to making it back. You no longer need the market to validate you. Instead, you show up as a professional, trade your plan, and let probabilities unfold. Remember this: the market doesn't owe you, me, or anyone else. It doesn't care about your past, your hopes, or your streaks. It only reflects probabilities. The moment you accept this, you stop chasing fairness and start trading with power. That's when consistency becomes possible. Ego is one of the most dangerous enemies a trader can face. It whispers you have to be right, you can't be wrong, prove you know better than the market. And when you listen to that voice, you stop trading probabilities. You start trading for validation. Mark Douglas made this point clear. Successful traders don't care about being right. They don't need to prove themselves. They care only about aligning with probabilities and executing their edge. That is what makes them rich while others blow accounts. Think about it. How many times have you held on to a losing trade because you didn't want to admit you were wrong? Maybe you moved your stop further and further, hoping the market would turn. Or maybe you doubled down, convinced you could outsmart the chart. Those decisions aren't about strategy, they're about ego. And ego is expensive. It blinds you to reality and makes you fight the market instead of flowing with it. Here's the brutal truth. The market is always bigger than you. It doesn't care about your opinions, predictions, or pride. You can be the smartest person in the room and still lose if your ego is driving your trades. The market punishes arrogance. It humbles anyone who tries to prove they're right. On the other hand, it quietly rewards those who trade with humility, patience, and respect for probabilities. Professional traders think differently. They don't see a losing trade as a personal failure. They don't see a winning trade as proof they're geniuses. They see both simply as outcomes in a probability game. This humility is their superpower. Because they don't need to be right, they can cut losses quickly without hesitation. Because they don't need to prove anything, they can take small, consistent wins without chasing glory. Letting go of ego doesn't mean losing confidence. It means replacing fragile pride with grounded certainty in your process. Confidence built on ego says, I know what the market will do. Confidence built on probabilities says, I don't need to know what the market will do. I just need to execute my edge. See the difference? One mindset fights the market, the other flows with it. So how do you weaken ego in trading? Start by embracing losses as normal. Every loss is not an attack on your intelligence. It's simply the cost of doing business. Keep your position sizes small enough that losses don't sting your pride. Journal every trade, and instead of writing, I was wrong, write, the probabilities didn't favor this one. This small language shift rewires your brain away from ego and toward probability thinking. Another key step: stop seeking to predict. Ego loves prediction. It loves saying, I called the top, or I nailed the bottom. But prediction feeds pride, not profits. Instead, focus on process. Did you follow your rules? Did you manage risk? Did you stay disciplined? That's what matters. Letting go of ego also means embracing uncertainty. Admit you don't know what will happen next. That's not weakness, it's strength. The traders who survive and thrive are not those who fight to be right, but those who accept they could be wrong and prepare accordingly. They align themselves with the flow of probabilities rather than fighting against it. At the end of the day, you have to make a choice. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be rich? Ego wants the first. Humility and discipline deliver the second. The market rewards those who let go of pride and embrace probabilities. Remember, the goal is not to prove yourself, it's to grow yourself. When you let go of ego, trading becomes lighter, freer, and far more consistent. You're no longer in a battle with the market or with yourself. You're simply playing a probability game with clarity and focus. And that's when you finally step into the mindset of a professional. If there is one truth every trader must tattoo into their mindset, it's this: anything can happen. Mark Douglas repeated this phrase because it captures the essence of trading. No matter how strong the setup looks, no matter how much confirmation you think you have, there is always uncertainty. That's why risk management is not optional. It's your seatbelt in the unpredictable world of markets. Without it, even the best strategies can end in disaster. Too many traders fall into the trap of believing their analysis makes them safe. They see a perfect chart pattern, multiple indicators lining up, strong news behind the move, and they convince themselves it has to work. So they risk too much, they remove the stop loss, they over-leverage, and then a sudden headline or a surprise move wipes them out. The problem wasn't the setup. The problem was poor risk management. Professional traders think differently. They don't ask, how certain is this trade? They ask, what's the risk if I'm wrong? That shift in perspective changes everything. They know they cannot control outcomes, but they can control risk. By managing risk like professionals, they survive losing streaks, protect capital, and position themselves to thrive when probabilities swing in their favor. Think of it like driving a car. Even if you're a skilled driver, accidents can happen at any time. Someone can run a red light, a tire can blow out, the weather can change suddenly. That's why you wear a seatbelt. Not because you expect to crash, but because you accept that crashes are always possible. In trading, risk management is that seatbelt. It doesn't stop losses, but it ensures they don't destroy you. So how do professionals manage risk? First, they define risk before entering the trade. They know exactly how much they are willing to lose if the trade goes against them. Second, they use stop-loss orders, not as suggestions, but as commitments. Third, they size their positions so that any single loss is insignificant to their overall account. A professional never risks so much on one trade that losing it shakes their confidence or their account. Amateurs, on the other hand, do the opposite. They risk big on one or two trades, hoping for a jackpot. They treat trading like a lottery ticket instead of a probability game, and when that one big trade goes wrong, it wipes them out. This is why so many traders blow accounts. It's not because they didn't find good setups. It's because they didn't manage risk. Here's a powerful exercise before placing any trade. Ask yourself, if this trade loses, will I still be calm, disciplined, and ready for the next one? If the answer is no, your risk is too high. Cut it down until a loss feels like just another part of the process. Because that's what it is. Losses are not failures. They are costs of doing business. The professional trader accepts this and plans for it. Risk management also protects you from your own psychology. When your risk is small, emotions stay small. You won't panic when the market moves against you. You won't be tempted to move stops or chase losses. Instead, you'll stay calm and execute your plan. Ironically, the more you respect risk, the more confidently you can trade. Mark Douglas reminded traders again and again, trading is not about avoiding losses. It's about surviving them. Risk is the only certainty. And if you don't control it, the market will control you. At the end of the day, consistency is not built on wins. It's built on protection. Protecting your capital, your discipline, and your ability to keep trading tomorrow. Manage risk like a professional, and you give yourself the one thing most traders never achieve: longevity. And longevity is the real secret to wealth in the markets. Confidence is essential in trading, but it's a very specific kind of confidence. It's not the loud, arrogant voice that says, "I know exactly what the market will do." That's not confidence. That's ego disguised as certainty. Real confidence, as Mark Douglas taught, comes from execution, not prediction. It's the quiet, steady belief that if you follow your edge over time, probabilities will play out in your favor. It's the discipline to act without hesitation, even though you know you can't control the outcome. Too many traders confuse confidence with arrogance. They take a few wins and suddenly believe they've figured out the market. They over-leverage, ignore risk, and trade recklessly because they're certain they're right. But arrogance always gets punished. The market has no mercy for those who try to dominate it. One unexpected move, one piece of breaking news, one shift in momentum, and arrogance collapses into panic. True confidence feels very different. It's calm, not loud. It doesn't need to brag or prove anything. It comes from preparation, discipline, and experience. It comes from knowing that even if this trade loses, you'll be fine, because you managed risk, followed your plan, and stayed aligned with probabilities. Confidence without arrogance is what allows you to act boldly and humbly at the same time. Think of a professional pilot. A pilot doesn't say, "I guarantee this flight will have no turbulence." That would be arrogance. Instead, a pilot says, "I know how to handle turbulence if it comes." That's confidence. They don't control the sky, but they control their training, their systems, and their actions. Trading works the same way. You can't control the market, but you can control how you prepare, how you manage risk, and how consistently you execute. So how do you build this kind of confidence? The first step is repetition. Confidence grows from taking your setups again and again, regardless of short-term results. Over time, you see your edge play out, and that experience creates trust. The second step is journaling. By tracking your trades, you can see your progress clearly and remind yourself that discipline works. The third step is risk management. Nothing builds confidence like knowing a loss won't hurt you. When your risk is small and controlled, you can act decisively without fear. The trap to avoid is arrogance, the belief that you can outsmart or control the market. Arrogance makes you ignore stops, chase trades, or hold losers because you know the market will turn. Arrogance whispers, "This time is different." Confidence says, "I'll follow my edge, win or lose, because probabilities don't need me to be right every time." Mark Douglas emphasized that the market is bigger than all of us. No trader, no matter how skilled, can predict it with certainty. The only real control we have is over ourselves, our discipline, our risk, and our mindset. Confidence means trusting those things. Arrogance means trying to bend the market to our will. One leads to consistency, the other leads to ruin. At the end of the day, the traders who last are not the loudest or the most certain. They're the ones who carry a quiet, unshakable confidence. They don't need to be right every time. They don't need to prove themselves. They just show up, execute, and let probabilities do the heavy lifting. Confidence without arrogance is balance. It's strength without overreach, courage without recklessness. It's what allows you to trade boldly while staying humble. And when you master this balance, you'll no longer feel the need to control the market. Because you'll realize the only thing you ever needed to control was yourself. Losses are the one certainty in trading. No matter how skilled, experienced, or disciplined you are, there will be losing trades. The difference between amateurs and professionals isn't who avoids losses, it's how they respond to them. Amateurs resist, deny, and fight every losing trade. Professionals accept them gracefully, as just another cost of doing business. That acceptance is what keeps their emotions stable and their accounts alive. Think about running a restaurant. You know some ingredients will spoil, some meals will get sent back, and some days will be slow. These aren't personal failures, they're normal business costs. No owner shuts down because of a bad day. They plan for it, budget for it, and move forward. Trading works the same way. Losses are not mistakes if you followed your plan. They're simply part of the cost of participating in the market. The problem is that most traders take losses personally. A losing trade feels like proof they're not good enough, smart enough, or disciplined enough. That emotional reaction is what leads to revenge trading, over-leveraging, and blowing up accounts. Instead of accepting the loss and moving on, they fight it. They refuse to let it go. And in that resistance, the loss multiplies, both financially and emotionally. Mark Douglas taught that acceptance is freedom. When you fully accept that losses are inevitable, they no longer shake your confidence. You stop fearing them because you expect them. You size your trades appropriately so that any single loss feels insignificant. You cut losers quickly, without hesitation, because you know holding on to them only makes things worse. Acceptance doesn't mean liking losses. It means understanding they are part of the game and treating them with neutrality. Here's the truth: fighting losses is what destroys traders, not the losses themselves. One loss won't blow your account, but refusing to accept it, adding to it, moving stops, or chasing it back, that's what causes disaster. Graceful acceptance means you take the hit, log it in your journal, and shift focus immediately to the next opportunity. No drama, no ego, no revenge. Just business. So how do you practice accepting losses? First, reframe your mindset. Stop calling them failures. Call them expenses, just like rent, electricity, or marketing in any business. Second, use risk management to make losses small. If you risk too much, no amount of mindset work will make a loss feel acceptable. Third, review your trading plan regularly. If the loss came from following your rules, you did your job. If it came from breaking rules, learn the lesson and move on. The most successful traders in the world lose all the time. Some have win rates below 50%, but they still make consistent profits because they accept losses gracefully and keep risk small. They don't waste energy on frustration or self-blame. They stay calm, consistent, and focused on probabilities. At the end of the day, losses are unavoidable. The only choice you have is how to respond to them. If you resist, they grow heavier. If you accept them, they stay light. And the lighter they feel, the more stable you remain, and the more consistently you can execute your edge. Remember this: every loss you take gracefully is proof you are becoming a professional. Every time you let go of anger or frustration, you gain strength. Every time you accept a loss as a simple cost of business, you protect both your account and your mindset. And over time, that graceful acceptance is what separates survivors from those who quit too soon. One of the most dangerous traps in trading is obsessing over the money. Every beginner comes into the markets dreaming about profits, quitting their job, buying the car, or achieving financial freedom. While those dreams can inspire you, they become a curse if you let them drive your decisions. Mark Douglas warned repeatedly, if you focus on the money, you'll sabotage your process. But if you focus on the process, the money will follow. Why is this so powerful? Because focusing on money makes you emotional. When you stare at profit and loss while a trade is running, your mind can't stay objective. A small move against you feels like a personal attack. A small profit makes you anxious to lock in gains, even if your edge hasn't fully played out. The constant pressure of thinking, I need to make money today, leads to forcing trades, breaking rules, and abandoning discipline. In other words, chasing money causes you to do the very things that guarantee you'll lose it. But when you shift focus to process, everything changes. The process is the set of repeatable actions that put probabilities in your favor, following your plan, respecting risk limits, taking trades only when your edge is present, journaling your results, and reviewing your performance. These steps might feel boring compared to the thrill of chasing profits, but they are the foundation of consistency. A trader who executes the process flawlessly, even if they lose money today, is far ahead of the one who made money by gambling. Think of it like a professional athlete. A tennis player doesn't step on the court obsessing about the trophy. They focus on footwork, timing, and execution of shots. The trophy is the byproduct of practicing the process under pressure. Trading is the same. You don't get consistency by demanding profits. You get consistency by practicing the behaviors that lead to profitability over time. Douglas often compared trading to probabilities. You can have an edge that wins 55% of the time, but if you only take half the trades because you're afraid of losing money, you destroy the probability. By focusing on money, you disrupt the process that lets your edge play out. But if you take every setup, size your trades properly, and execute without hesitation, your probability edge has room to work. That's process thinking in action. Another reason process focus is critical is because money is outside your control in the short term. You can't control if your next trade will win or lose, but you can control whether you followed your rules. When you judge yourself by money, you're tying your self-worth to something you cannot control. When you judge yourself by process, you measure success by discipline and consistency, things fully under your control. That shift relieves enormous pressure and allows you to trade with clarity. Here's a practical exercise. After every trading day, don't ask, "Did I make money?" Ask, "Did I follow my plan?" A day where you stuck to the process, even with a financial loss, is a successful day. A day where you broke rules even if you ended green, is a failure. Over time, this mindset creates the emotional resilience professionals have. The irony is that once you stop chasing money and start mastering process, the profits begin to flow naturally. You trade with less fear and greed. You execute consistently. You let your edge unfold across hundreds of trades instead of sabotaging it with impatience. And eventually, the money comes as the natural outcome of process-driven behavior. Mark Douglas's truth is simple but life-changing: process first, money second. If you flip that order, you'll never find consistency. But if you commit to the process, day after day, trade after trade, the market will reward you, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Consistency. It's the holy grail of trading, but most traders misunderstand what it really means. They think consistency is about winning all the time, stringing together endless green days, or never taking a loss. But Mark Douglas taught something radically different. Consistency isn't about avoiding losses at all. It's about trading your plan flawlessly, again and again, regardless of the outcome of any single trade. In fact, losses are part of consistency, because they are the natural expression of probability. A trader who understands this no longer fears a red trade, because they know it doesn't break the bigger picture. Douglas often compared trading to running a casino. A casino doesn't win on every spin of the roulette wheel. It doesn't profit on every hand of blackjack. In fact, in the short term, gamblers win all the time. But the casino doesn't care, because it knows something the gamblers don't. The casino has the edge. Over thousands of plays, that edge guarantees profit. Some spins are losses, some are wins, but the outcome over time is inevitable. This is the mindset Douglas wanted traders to adopt, to think like the casino, not the gambler. When you trade with consistency, you stop obsessing over the outcome of a single trade. Each trade becomes just one in a long series, no more important than any other. What matters isn't whether this trade wins or loses, it's whether you executed it according to your edge. Did you follow your rules? Did you honor your stop loss? Did you stick to your position size? If the answer is yes, then it was a good trade, regardless of whether the result was profit or loss. This shift is liberating because it takes the emotional weight off each decision. Most traders blow up their accounts because they chase short-term validation. They want every trade to work, and when it doesn't, they spiral. They adjust systems constantly, abandon strategies too soon, or double their risk trying to make back a loss. All of this comes from misunderstanding consistency. Real consistency means sticking to one edge long enough for probability to play out. You don't need to win every time. You just need to execute with discipline over and over until the edge delivers. This doesn't mean trading mechanically like a robot. It means accepting that your job is not to predict the market, but to manage your behavior within it. If you place a trade that perfectly aligns with your setup, and it loses, you still succeeded. If you take a random trade outside your plan and it wins, you failed. That's the paradox most beginners never grasp. Consistency is measured by how well you follow your process, not by the outcome of individual trades. When you internalize this truth, your whole relationship with trading changes. Losses stop being threats to your identity. Wins stop inflating your ego. You become steady, calm, detached. You're no longer chasing the market. You're simply playing out your edge like a casino running its games. The gamblers may celebrate or despair with every outcome, but you remain grounded because you know the long-term math is on your side. Over time, this mindset compounds into the kind of results every trader dreams of. Small wins and small losses add up. The edge plays out, and the account grows steadily. It doesn't feel dramatic, it doesn't feel like hitting the jackpot, but it feels sustainable. And sustainability is what separates the professionals from the dreamers. Douglas's Rule 13 is simple but profound. True consistency comes from focusing on execution, not outcome. Trade your plan flawlessly, let the probabilities work themselves out, and stop thinking like a gambler chasing wins. Think like a casino. Build your edge. Play it over and over. That is how you achieve the kind of consistency that lasts a lifetime. One of the most dangerous traps in trading is something Mark Douglas called random reinforcement. It happens when the outcome of a trade, whether it's a win or a loss, sends the wrong signal to your brain about the quality of your decision. Think about it. A bad trade can still win. You can break every rule, chase price, ignore risk, and by pure luck, the market moves in your favor. In that moment, your brain rewards you. It tells you the reckless decision was good because it produced profit. On the flip side, a perfectly executed trade, planned, disciplined, following your edge, can still lose. Probability guarantees it will happen. But in that moment, your brain punishes you. It whispers that maybe your rules don't work, that maybe you should change your system. Both of these outcomes are illusions. They trick you into abandoning discipline. And that is why Douglas warns so strongly against random reinforcement. Most traders don't realize how powerful this trap is. Human psychology is wired to associate reward with good behavior and punishment with bad behavior. But the market doesn't follow that logic. The market is random in the short term. One trade means nothing. Yet when you treat a single outcome as evidence, you start to build destructive habits. You win on a reckless gamble, and suddenly, you start trading recklessly more often. You lose on a disciplined setup, and suddenly, you stop trusting your edge. Over time, this erodes your entire foundation as a trader. The only way to escape this trap is to detach. You must separate the quality of a trade from the outcome of a trade. A good trade is defined not by whether it made money, but by whether it followed your rules and your edge. A bad trade is defined not by whether it lost money, but by whether it broke your rules. This distinction is the heart of professionalism. When you internalize it, you stop letting random reinforcement control your behavior. Imagine two traders. Trader A takes a reckless, oversized position, no stop-loss, pure gamble. It wins big. Trader B takes a small, disciplined trade that follows their system perfectly. It loses. Who was successful? Most beginners would say Trader A because the profit looks like success. But in reality, Trader B is the professional because they acted according to their edge. Trader A is building bad habits that will eventually wipe them out. Trader B is building consistency that will eventually pay out. This is the power of detachment. Douglas taught that winners never let a single outcome define their confidence or change their rules. They know losses are part of the process. They know wins can come from bad decisions. So they measure success differently. They measure it by how consistently they follow their plan, not by whether the last trade made or lost money. This mindset frees them from the emotional roller coaster of random reinforcement. When you embrace this principle, you start to see every trade as neutral feedback. Wins don't make you reckless, and losses don't make you doubt. You record the result, log the trade, and move on. Over time, this detachment builds an unshakable confidence because you're no longer at the mercy of random short-term outcomes. You're anchored in the process, not the result. This is Rule 14 in action. Detach from random reinforcement. Don't let the market trick you into rewarding bad behavior or punishing good behavior. Judge yourself by your discipline, not by luck. Follow your rules no matter what. That's how professionals think. That's how consistency is built. At the heart of Mark Douglas's teaching lies a truth that most traders resist. Trading is not about finding the perfect system or the magic indicator. It's about mastering yourself. Douglas often said that trading is 80% psychology and only 20% mechanics. That means no matter how advanced your technical analysis is, no matter how many strategies you test, none of it will save you if your mindset is broken. The market is not a puzzle to be solved. It's a mirror that reflects your beliefs, your fears, your habits, and your ability to stay disciplined under pressure. Think about it. Two traders can use the exact same system. They can have the same entry rules, the same risk management, even trade the same instrument. One of them makes steady gains over time, while the other blows up their account. The difference isn't the system, it's the trader's mind. The successful one has trained themselves to stay calm, to follow the plan, to accept losses, and to manage risk. The failing one lets fear, greed, or ego take over. They hesitate, over-leverage, revenge trade, or abandon their rules at the first sign of discomfort. This is why Douglas insisted psychology is the real battlefield. The truth is, mechanics are easy. Anyone can learn to draw support and resistance, to spot a trend line, or to set up an indicator. But very few can sit through a losing streak without losing faith. Very few can cut a loss quickly instead of hoping it turns around. Very few can watch a winner run without snatching profits too early out of fear. These challenges aren't mechanical, they're emotional. And unless you train your mind, you'll repeat the same destructive patterns no matter how many systems you try. Douglas encouraged traders to think of themselves as athletes of the mind. Just as a runner trains their body to endure stress, a trader must train their mind to stay balanced under pressure. This means developing habits of patience, discipline, and acceptance. It means journaling trades, reflecting on emotions, and noticing when fear or greed start to whisper in your ear. It means practicing detachment until a loss feels no different than paying for gas. Just another cost of doing business. This training is ongoing. You don't master it in a week. You build it trade by trade, until neutrality becomes your natural state. And here's the paradox: once you stop obsessing over winning, once you accept uncertainty and focus only on executing well, consistency finally appears. The traders who treat psychology as secondary never reach this point. They jump from system to system, blaming strategies when their emotions were the real problem. But the traders who take Douglas's lesson to heart, who commit to the mental game, unlock a stability that no market condition can shake. At the core, Rule 15 is the foundation that holds all others together. Neutralizing fear and greed, thinking like a casino, detaching from random reinforcement. All of it only works if you accept that the battle is in your mind. Once you embrace this, the market stops feeling like an enemy to conquer and starts feeling like an arena for growth. You don't control price, you don't control outcomes, but you do control your behavior, and that's all you ever need to control. This is why Douglas's work continues to impact traders worldwide. He didn't just give strategies, he gave truth. A truth many resist but all must face. Trading is a mental game. If you train your mind, even a simple system can make you consistent. If you neglect your mind, no complex system will ever save you. In the end, psychology is the edge, and the sooner you master it, the sooner the market will stop breaking you and start rewarding you. So there you have it, the 15 secret rules of Mark Douglas. Not one of them was about indicators, signals, or the latest trading hacks. Every single rule was about you, your mind, your emotions, your discipline, your ability to stay grounded when the storm hits. Because in the end, the market is not against you and it's not for you. The market is neutral. It doesn't care who you are, how much you've studied, or how badly you want to win. It just moves, up and down, back and forth, neutral. And that's the part most traders never grasp. They keep searching outside for the answer, new strategies, new tools, new systems, when all along, the answer was within them. It's not the market that decides whether you win or lose. It's the meaning you attach to what the market does. It's your psychology that either frees you to trade with confidence or chains you to fear and greed. If you absorb these rules and live them, something begins to shift. You stop chasing certainty, because you finally accept uncertainty as the nature of the game. You stop sabotaging yourself with impulsive mistakes, because discipline becomes your foundation. You stop treating every single trade like life or death, because you understand probability is your ally. Slowly, trading becomes less of a battle and more of a process. A calm, steady process that builds consistency. And here's the truth Douglas wanted you to see: your greatest edge will never be your charting system, your indicator, or your strategy. Your greatest edge is your state of mind. A trader with a simple plan but the right mindset will outperform a trader with a complex system and a chaotic mind. Every single time. So now the question is simple. Will you just hear these rules, nod along, and then go back to trading the way you always have? Or will you live by them? Will you practice them daily until they become second nature? The choice is yours. Because in trading, the enemy is never the market, it's always yourself. Conquer that, and you'll finally know what consistency feels like.